Hey, welcome back. So, today we have two very popular, very interesting characters. They are Jon Snow and Greyworm. We won't be discussing their backgrounds and histories just because if you're watching this, you've probably watched Game of Thrones, and if you've watched Game of Thrones, you definitely know enough about both of their backgrounds. Also, we'll be doing the same four categories we usually do, which are strength, speed, skill, and intelligence, and an extra one which is weaponry, just because it's a very interesting category and it is very relevant to Game of Thrones considering the wide range of weapons there are available. Also, it'll be super interesting to match these two up, considering they have had a bit of tension leading up to in the last season, and we were actually never given, that fight, which would have been a sick fight. But yeah, so with no further ado, we'll begin. We'll begin with strength as usual, and while we're discussing strength, we need to actually remember that we have the Rod Baratheons, we have the Hounds, the Mountains, the Torments, the Drogos. We have a lot of power and strength in Game of Thrones, so we need to think about that before we rate these characters. And with Jon, firstly, with Jon, what can we say about Jon? Jon is pretty short. He's not particularly big, or he's not packing a lot of muscle. He's more just basic, fairly lean, a bit of muscle. So I mean, he can handle himself against some of these really big characters, which we've seen. But if we're talking about just sheer strength, I don't think he's got a lot of that. He's very average, and that's why I'd give him a 7.5, which I still think is pretty nice, but it will be a 7.5 for him. With Grey Worm, on the other hand, with Grey Worm, we can see he's skinny, he's small, he's pretty scrawny. I mean, no, scrawny is a bit rude, but he's not. I mean, in terms of muscular build, he ain't really got that. He's lean, but he's not got a lot of muscle. So, and remember, he was castrated as a child, so that did obviously affect his hormones, and that really does affect the way you grow. So, I mean, he could have probably been bigger if that did not happen. But we're thinking about what we've got with Grey Worm, and with Grey Worm, I still feel like he has a lot of core strength just because of all the training he's endured growing up. So I'm gonna give him a 7 because of that. Yep. So with speed, we've seen Jon. Jon's quite quick. He's got good reflexes, but again, we need to consider we have the Oberyn's, we have the Darios, we have the Syrio Pharrells. We even have people like Theon and Loris who are really fast, I think. So Jon hasn't proven to be extremely fast. We can see he's got a bit of speed, but it's very average for an average warrior. So hence why I need to give him a 7. I can't see him going above a 7. With Grey Worm, on the other hand, Grey Worm, you can see, I mean, I feel like naturally we would give him like an 8 and above, because he just seems like a really quick character. He seems quite agile, quite fast. We've seen it. Although sometimes when he fights quite slow, and I feel like just only because he's composed and he's not out there just swinging his sword aimlessly. He's quite precise, and I feel like that doesn't undermine his speed. It just means that he's efficient in the way he kills and fights. So hence why I would give him an 8. Yep. So with skill's a bit more difficult. With Jon, it's just Jon's shown that he can do some cool tricks and he can use Long Claw in a cool way sometimes, but he's more of just a fighter, a very basic fighter. He just, I mean, we've seen him against someone who's got super skill, which is Carl Tanner, and there is, I feel like that is a comparison of average to skillful. We've seen someone like Oberyn versus the Mountain, or someone like, I don't know, we have a lot of characters who have super skill, who, when I say skill, I feel like I mean someone who has taken their weapon of choice and he's used it so much and has mastered it so beautifully that they have unlocked new ways of using it that just look really cool, I guess. And I feel like with Carl Tanner, we can see that. With Jon, we never see that. I mean, Jon, he knows how to fight. He knows how to be. I mean, he knows how to use a bit of skill when is necessary. He's not a show off, but I don't think being a show off means that. I don't think using skill makes you a show off. I feel like sometimes if you just mastered the weapon so well, you just naturally just use the skill. So in that category, I need to give Jon a 7 again. Just very average. With Grey Worm on the other hand, Grey Worm, it seems that he's mastered this, not just the spear but the skill as well. He just looks like he's really cool using it. I mean, I wouldn't, say he's far behind Oberyn in the way he's mastered using the skill. You've seen him do some really, when I say unlock, but I mean when you unlock these new ways of using the weapon, it does come in handy when you're fighting, and we see that when he's fighting the Sons of the Harpy alongside Barristan Selmy, which comes across really cool and really talented, I guess. And obviously he's going to have that because he's had years of experience since he's very young, and it's not like he's been trained, it's more like he's been forced to learn. So yeah, we'll move on to intelligence. Intelligence is very tricky with Jon. Jon is formally educated. He's had the best of what the North has to offer. The Roderick Castells, the Maester Lewins, and I've said this already. If you've grown up in a very well-off, successful house, or the house of that region, whether obviously the North, it's Winterfell, whether it's if it's Dawn and Sunspear, it's it's the Martells, it's all over, wherever you go, whether you're a Lannister, whether you grow up with the Martells or the Tyrells or whatever. So Jon has had the best the North has had to offer in terms of training. He probably is really great at battle strategies and maybe even just learning how to be a good warrior and use his skills effectively, which Roderick Castell has probably taught him. But at the same time, I feel like Jon's character does ruin this for him in the context of a one-on-one combat situation. I just feel like he's too honourable, and that honour does lead him to make some stupid decisions, whether it's what he did with Cersei, and he kind of expressed his allegiance to, he told her about his allegiance to Daenerys, which he could have easily lied, and that cost him the Lannister forces coming to help them in Winterfell against the dead. I mean, that's just one example of Jon making a silly decision just because of the honor. But I'm just trying to say that his I don't feel like he makes decisions that benefit him to the best that he can be benefited from these decisions. I don't know if that makes sense. So yeah, I would give him a 7.5. Just when you see people like, I've discussed this several times, but in one-on-one combat situations, people like Bronn, people like Dario, they have a lot of street smart, which I feel like is very necessary because you are fighting to win. And I feel like sometimes you need to throw honor out the window in order to win, and that's why I wouldn't put my money on Jon, because I feel like Jon wouldn't do that. I feel like there'd be opportunities maybe that Jon could win, and Jon would do them because he might think that would make the fight unfair or whatever, but this is in order to win. Anyway, I've rambled on a bit there, so we're going to talk about Grey Worm, and a Grey Worm I feel like his intelligence is quite high in this aspect, just because the way he's been trained growing up. He's been told to take babies from their mothers and kill them. You could see the way when Daenerys acquires the Unsullied, they're basically robots, And I feel like once you have the strength, the speed, the skill, the weaponry or whatever, and you don't let your emotions, cloud your judgment to any extent, you are super efficient in what you do, he's basically a robot. So, he has no... I don't think he cares about honor. He just cares. I feel like he'd have a bit more honor than some of these other characters, but he just cares about winning, and I feel like that is very necessary. He's a machine. I feel like that's the best I can describe him, and I feel like that might not be the best but it'll be better than Jon in this kind of regard. So I'd give him an intelligence. I give him an 8.5 just in this context. So yeah, we'll move on to the final category, which is weaponry. Weaponry is a super interesting category. We have Jon Snow with a long claw, pretty basic weapon, which is a sword, but because it's long claw and because it's Valyrian steel, it just boosts it way up. Just Valyrian steel is Valyrian steel. It's the most desired weapon, I guess, in all of Westeros. It's light but powerful. It's super sharp, and it's one of the only two weapons that we know can kill White Walkers and kill Whites. So therefore, it has to be given a higher rating. But because of its kind of boringness, I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I don't think it deserves more than an 8.5. Yeah, maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but yeah. With Grey Worm, he has a sword and shield, not sword and shield, spear and shield, which he uses very, very effectively. And, the spear is good for kind of, a long distance kind of reach. The shield he can clearly use as a defense and an attacking weapon for like someone who gets super close, in order to just fighting them super close with a shield, or just pushing them far back enough in order to use a spear. Although it's even better as a unit of the Unsullied being together and fighting with the spears and the shields, individually it is just as useful. And it's just, even if you lose one, he's shown that he could lose either. And he could still be able to fight with the other one. So that's why I feel like I need to give him 8.5 as well, just because it's unique in Game of Thrones as well. There's not a lot of characters that use a spear and a shield as their main choice of weapon. So we don't really need to think too much about who the winner is. It's clearly Grey Worm. Grey Worm has won 3 out of 5 categories. They've tied 1, and Jon's won 1, but we don't even need to do the points system kind of thing, because it's only a 0.5 which Jon won by. So Grey Worm has absolutely demolished Jon in this, which I think is fair. I feel like Grey Worm is a much better warrior than Jon Snow. I feel like Jon Snow has a very interesting plot line, a lot of luck, and a lot of plot armor in the last 2 seasons. Jon Snow is an amazing character. Amazing character to follow. You follow his heart, his journey, his struggles, and that's why we kind of put Jon on his pedestal, because we see him fighting a lot. Whether it's beyond the wall or in the north or whatever, we're following Jon's journey. That's why we have this connection to Jon. But if we kind of remove ourselves and we kind of see the talent that Game of Thrones has to offer, Jon Snow isn't really that great of a warrior. So Grey Worm does take this home. So I guess that's all we have today. And thank you for listening. And opinions are welcome.